Okay, now that we've gone over the rules, let's see how this works in practice. We're starting mid-game here. The barrage has been set up already in the previous turn's admin phase. The bow fighters are about to move into the flak zones here. I've removed the coloured boxes and everything because I thought they might just clutter things up a bit and possibly confuse things. After much cogitating over this, I've decided that the S Squadron will strafe and rocket the rear light flak, and then they are going to strafe the destroyer after that, if they're still around. So that's their 2 strafes and rocket done. T is going to strafe the rear flak, and it's going to also try and strafe the PG, and then later on it's going to try and rocket the destroyer. This is the plan. It's going to vary obviously, because if somebody blows up one of the things beforehand, then we'll have to change the order of who's firing at what, but this is the theoretical targets here. And then U is going to pick up the pieces, really. Whoever's left, they can strafe, and ultimately, if the destroyer is still up, they're going to rocket the destroyer for sure. But we'll figure that out after the first couple of shots here. When we start the turn, we don't have to worry about tallying anyone because there's no other planes to tally the way we've set this up. So we can just get on with the movement, and bombers obviously move. Now S is going to move into the barrage zone here, and then T is going to move, and then U is going to move. At the end of the movement, the barrage is going to attack the S Squadron. So this is before actual combat happens. At this point, there's not much the S Squadron can actually do. They could theoretically fire their rockets at the light flak B in the front of them there, but we've decided we're going to hold off on that and save the rockets for things further back. So they're just going to have to soak up the barrage fire. Now, at this point, we have a single barrage counter up that's affecting this area. None of these other barrage counters can affect these 2 squares. So the barrage zone is just the 4 squares around this one, and that's being projected from the front light flak here. So it's just going to be a single barrage attack. There's going to be no supporting fire or anything like that. However, since the strength of this flak unit is 2, because it's an L2, there is going to be a +2 modifier on the barrage roll. So if we have a look at the table, which I will put up in the right corner again, we just see we've just got the +2 modifier, and that is all. The stuff below that, the second table there, dice modifiers are for direct fire only, so they do not apply to the barrage. We're just looking at the top 5 modifiers there. All we're going to do is roll 2d6 and add a +2, and we're going to look at the barrage column on the left there, and we start off with an 8, so that is modified to a 10. And that means that the barrage does inflict 1 hit, and it will also force a cohesion check on the bombers already. So they're flying into the barrage zone, things are getting rough, stuff's exploding around them. They may waver a little bit here, but they're bombers. I have faith. They tend to hold themselves together a bit better when it comes to cohesion. We're going to see if there's a loss first. There is no modifier to the firepower because it's barrage, so it's just a straight roll. They've got a protection of 4 to 5, so they'd have to roll high to get through that. Let's see if we take any losses. We roll a 3. That is less than protection of 4, so that is not a loss, and not a straggler either, but it is a cohesion roll. We roll on the cohesion table, and we are looking at no losses. It is a veteran squadron. These bombers are all veterans. And then the air combat stuff doesn't apply because this is not air combat. So they just get a +1 on their cohesion roll, which is a 7 modified to an 8. And for a bomber, that is more than enough to be fine. So they've entered the barrage zone, shells are exploding around them, but they're holding on, nobody's been hit, no one's taken any losses, we're all good. Now, we got the combat phase. There isn't any combat in this particular turn. And then we have the admin phase where the barrage can potentially be moved or removed. Now I do have the option of moving this barrage back to the rear corner here, but as far as I can see that is not going to make any difference. So the heavy flak on the destroyer, as I indicated last time, has a longer range, and it can actually put a barrage counter in this corner, or it can go another corner out from the normal one. So instead of just putting it in 2 spots, they could put it in 4 spots. And in doing that, that widens out the range of the barrage so that if it's out here, it can attack up to 2 columns away. And I can do that at any altitude because it's heavy flak. So I could potentially move this. Instead of being in up here, it could actually move over here, and then that would make even more fun times for the Beaufighters on their way in. Why don't we do that? So yeah, they're going to move their barrage marker 1 corner over so that it's here now. And then we go on to the next turn. Again, there's no tallying. Now we have movement. Now it's going to get a little more fiddly. So first, the S Beaufighter moves 1, 2. And then T moves 1, 2, and then U moves. Now, we are deep in the barrage zone. Again, the barrage resolves at the end of the movement. So we've got to see, starting from S here, did the Beaufighter enter a square that contains flak? Yes, it did. Therefore, it will be resolving a flak attack. Now we've got to figure out the number of units that fired the barrage that it's going through. I think it's the easiest way to explain this. It started off here. Remember, when you leave a flak square, it doesn't count as an attack. It's only when you enter one. So it's entered the flak zone of the front flak again, because that's these 4 squares. So that's 1. But it's also entered the flak zone of the rear flak, which is these 4 squares. So that's 2 units. Now it's entered this square. So it's still in this flak units zone, so that doesn't change anything. But now it's entered the flak zones of 2 more units, the L0 from the PG1 and the H0 from the DD4. So it's actually entered 4 flak zones in total on the way in. It's flown into 4 barrage counters worth of barrage. That means that we pick one of those to be the main attacker, the primary combatant of the flak, essentially. And we're going to pick one of the L2s here, because obviously that is much more powerful. So let's pick this one. Then we're going to add a bunch of supporting fire modifiers. It's flown through 4 units worth of flak, remember. So one of them's doing the firing, the other 3... they don't get to make separate rolls, they just get to add 1 to the roll for each unit. So that's going to be a +3 on top of the +2. So now we've got a +5 modifier. There's nothing else, there's no speed modifiers or slow modifiers or anything like that. So it's a total of +5 on this Beaufighter. So the chances are it's going to take at least 1 hit. Probably more, but let's see what happens. So a +5 on the flak attack roll on Squadron S is an 8. That is a 13. So it's potentially taking 2 hits. So let's see if they are good hits or misses. And again, there's no modifier to the firepower. So we are just rolling twice on a d6 and looking for high numbers in order to take some of them down. We have a 3 and a 4. The best they got out of that was a straggler, because they rolled a 4. We have to do their cohesion roll before we do anything else. So again, it's just a veteran. There's no losses, so it's just +1 on the roll. Ooh, we have a 3. And ordinarily that would disrupt them. A 4 would disrupt them as well. So they are actually disrupted now. That's not what we want. Well, we'll see what that does then. It's going to screw things up on the bombing front, that's for sure. So now we do Squadron T. And they were here. And they moved into one barrage zone here and then a second barrage zone. One of those is supporting fire. The other one is the actual barrage role. We'll just say that the front one is the primary and the supporting one is the rear one. So they're going to have a +2 from the strength, and there's going to be a +1 supporting fire modifier. So it's a +3 in total on the barrage roll. And that is a 6, and that is going to be modified to a 9. So that is one possible hit and definitely a cohesion. So we are going to roll the d6 for the hit. That's a 4. They also take a straggler. And we're going to roll for the cohesion, and that's at +1 again because they're veterans. That is fine. They are sticking together there. Then the last one is Squadron U. They started off here in 0, and then they moved forward and moved forward again. They entered 1 unit's barrage zone. So they are again going to be hit with a +2 because of the strength, but there is no supporting fire, so it's just a +2, that's it. So the barrage roll is a 7, again that's a 9 after modification, so they could take a hit. They do, they take a loss in fact, and they make a cohesion check now, and they have to take a -1 penalty for the loss and a +1 for the veteran, so it's just a straight roll. That's a 7, they are okay. So that is the end of that barrage. Now the planes can actually drop stuff. We're lining up on this flag. So they're going to get a double whammy of strafing and air-to-ground rocket. Both have to happen in the same square. The rockets theoretically can happen a square behind, but since we're combining the attacks, they both have to happen at the same time, obviously. At this point, the Beaufighter is diving in on the light flak there, letting loose its rockets, going dakka with its guns. The modifiers to the roll are assuming that it is just a straight rocket attack, which is the same as the strafing one anyway, so it's +3 on that. At this altitude, we've got 0 modifier, no defense modifier. It was attacked by flak, and as such, the bombing modifier is -2. So they've got the +3, they've got -2 for the bombing modifier. They did aim. They are a veteran, so they get another +1 on top of that, so they are at +2. But they are disrupted, so they get a -2 on that. So they are now on 0, so it's a straight roll, so that makes it not terribly likely that they're going to do a great amount of damage. They're just going to add the 8 from the rockets to the firepower, which is 3, so that's 11. That's their effective bombing value. It's a straight roll. Hope for high numbers. 9. That's not horrible. So 25% of 11 is what that is. That's 25% hits. That is 2.75, which is rounded to the nearest whole number. That is 3 hits. That's a bit annoying. I was hoping that would be enough to take that out, but apparently not. But it has 3 hits, so that's something at least. So if another one of the squadrons attacks it and does at least 1 hit, then they might be able to take the flak out. But it means the flak is still there. You have to do damage equal to the damage rating to actually suppress the flak. So the flak is still firing in the next turn then. That's a wee bit unfortunate, but there we go. Also, by the way, that has now dropped. S has lost their rockets. T can decide whether they're going to fire their rockets now. No, they're not going to, because they need to save them for the destroyer. So T isn't going to do anything, U isn't going to do anything. So we had an attempt to hit the flak. We did hit it. We did a decent amount of damage. We got a victory point at least out of that. Maybe even 2. But we did not take it out. So that was the thing we wanted to do. That is it for the bombing. Before we go to the next turn, there's the admin phase. So now the barrage counters can be moved. At this point, it may be interesting to move things around. The heavy flak is going to move its counter back here. I don't know if it's going to make a vast difference, but why don't we do this? We're going to move the damaged flak's barrage back to its rear corner, and we're going to move this one over here. So the front is now firing back here. So again, we could do direct fire, but I'm just doing this to show how barrage works. So that's why they're making these possibly suboptimal decisions, but it's just for demonstration purposes. That's that turn done. The next turn, the barrage has shifted a bit. It might change the supporting fire things a bit more here. Now, Bowfighter S is going to move forward here, 1, 2, and they're going to strafe the destroyer. Sorry, forgot to put the -1 ammo on the S squadron there because they had strafed before. So this is going to be their second strafe. So they're going to be strafing the destroyer. The T squadron is going to move forward 2 through further barraging. And they are going to strafe the patrol boat below them. And then the U squadron is going to come back here. They are going to strafe the flak. At the moment, everyone is just strafing everybody below them. The barrage is going to hit them first because it's going to hit them at the end of the movement. Now, S has moved from here. Now it's moving forward there. It's entering the barrage zones from these 2 counters. That's 2 units. And the barrage zones from these 2 counters, which is another 2 units. So it's entering 4 units flak zones, one of which is going to be firing at it. Now, it did enter the L2's flak zone here technically because this is the L2's flak zone. So the L2 can still fire at it, so we will use that as a primary. And then we'll have another +3 for supporting fire for the other flak unit's barrage. So again, heavy barrage, it's going to be a +5 modifier on the roll, and we'll see how that affects the S squadron. Not too horribly. The trick is that we don't want to get 14 or more, so we've got a 12 on that one. If we get 14 or more, we have to roll the d6 for the hits, and that's not going to be good. So a 12, though, is still 2 hits. So let's have a look at the possible damage done. No modifiers again. That's a 4 and a 6. So a 4 is a straggler. Another straggler becomes a loss. And then a 6 is another loss. That becomes 2 losses. So they've now got 2 planes shot down. So that's not going to bode well for them. And they have to make a cohesion roll. And also they've got that -2 bombing modifier because they got 2 hits there. So cohesion, they are at a -2 for the losses, +1 for veterans. So it's a -1 on their cohesion roll, which is a 4. Oh great, that breaks them. Awesome. Well, they are disrupted again. They are already disrupted, so S is actually broken by that. That's interesting. They can still attack though. They just have a big penalty on it. So they will still attempt to strafe, but it's very unlikely that it's going to work. The T squadron here, they enter 1 zone here from the forward light flak, and then they've also entered 2 more from these 2 counters here. So that's 3 zones. And then when they moved into here, they entered another 2, so that's actually 5 zones. Wow. And again, they can get hit by the L2. So they got a +4 supporting fire, and the primary fire of this one at +2, so that's +6. Ugh, that's going to be painful. +6 on the barrage roll on T. Thankfully, that was a low number. So that's a 5 + 6. That's only a single hit. So despite that exploding fury, they've potentially only taken one hit. And that's going to be a straight roll. That's a 3. That is okay. They have not taken any losses or anything there, so they're good. But they do have to make a cohesion roll. And the cohesion roll, again, they still haven't taken any losses because they have a straggler there. That doesn't count as a loss. So that's going to be a +1 because they're veteran. 4 +1 though is enough to get them out of the disrupted zone there. So amazingly, they held that together. Didn't take any losses despite all of that. And the U squadron here, they started off here. They entered one zone here, and they entered 2 3 zones. So 3 zones in total. Again, they're going to get hit by an L2, so that's going to be 2 supporting fire +2, so that's a +4 on their barrage roll, which again is not ideal. And again, thankfully we're rolling low numbers. So that's a 10. Again, that's another hit. And sorry, I should put the bombing modifier for them. They got a -1 there. So that's another hit, which again is another -1 on them. So the losses are going to be a straight loss roll. 4, that's a straggler. And that is going to be it for the damage they've taken there. But they do still have to take a cohesion roll. And that is going to be now, what's that? That's a -1 for the loss there. And that's going to be a +1 for the veteran. No further losses though, so it's just a straight roll. 8, they're fine. Okay. So, lots of bombing modifiers on here as well now. So, S was going to attempt to strafe the destroyer, but they're not going to have much luck, I don't think. So the modifiers on the bombing roll, the strafing roll, no altitude ones, it's a -2 modifier for the defense, so the ship has a defense value of -2. They got +3 for the strafing, so that is +1 total. There is a bombing modifier of -2, so that's -1. They are veteran, so that is 0, but they are broken. The broken modifier is not cumulative with the disrupted modifier, so it's just a -4. So at the end of all that, they've got a -4 modifier on the roll, so that's unlikely to do anything unless I roll a 12. I roll an 11. -4 is going to be 7. It's 10% of 3, which is the strafing thing, which is not enough to do any damage. 0.3 does not get rounded up. So they attempt to strafe the destroyer but fail because they've just been shot to ribbons here. Now, I believe we were going to be strafing everybody here. So T is going to be attempting to strafe the patrol boat. Again, they've got a -2 defense bonus. Again, we're strafing, so that's a net of +1. It has a -1 modifier for the bombing modifier there, so that's a 0 net. It's a veteran, so it's +1, and then that's it. So they've actually got a +1 on their roll. At least that's better than negatives. So +1 to do a bombing value of 3 for their firepower with the strafing. And that's not enough. Yeah, again, that's just 10% of the damage. It's not going to do anything. Pings off the hull. Okay, and they've used up their ammo for the strafing. And then the U squadron here, trying to strafe this flak as they're flying over. Same deal. I think it's basically going to be the same modifiers, isn't it? -2 +3 is +1. -1 is 0. +1 for the veteran. So yeah, it's going to be a +1 again. These dice are rolling atrociously today. So yeah, that's 10% again. It's going to be a modified roll of 7, which is still fairly lousy. Well, what are we going to do now? The front flak here is, their work is done. They can't really do anything else with their barrage because everyone's going to be moving on here. But the heavy flak can do some interesting things. So at the end of the turn, the heavy flak is going to move its flak over here, up to 2 columns away there. So that's the furthest extent that can go. The light flak on here is going to move over here, so it's still going to cause some problems for S. Although at this point S is broken anyway, but they want to inflict maximum damage. The patrol boat is going to move its flak back here. Yeah, I think this flak is just going to stay there. That flak's going to stay there as well. There's not much else it can do. So we're going to do it like that, I think. But these are the 2 L2 barrages here, so I don't think S is going to be affected by that. That's going to be how they're going to rearrange their barrages. So remember, they can just move their counters at the end of the admin phase. That's it. S is done anyway. I mean, it's got nothing left to fire. It's used up its strafes and it's fired its rockets and it's broken anyway. So they're just going to fly off. Ideally, they'd like to fly off in a way that doesn't get them going through an awful lot of barrage. So probably what they're going to do is go like this. So we're starting on the next turn now. They're going to go up 1 and up. If I was smart with the heavy flak here, I could have actually put that up there and then they'd be screwed as they were flying out that way as well. So they enter 1 unit's barrage zone here and then they leave. So they're only going to get hit by the light flak there. That's S getting out of there. Now T has its rocket still, so they're going to try and attack the destroyer with their rockets and with the strafe. So we're going to attempt to do a double attack here. So they're going to go here and essentially they're dropping their bombs mid-move. They're doing their attack here and then they're going to carry on and leave. Yeah, they could probably fly up as well, actually, couldn't they? So they can go here and then rotate up and get out that way. Technically, they're climbing, their speed values are lower, but it doesn't matter for this. And then U is going to move here, 1, 2. S has flown off. T fires its rockets and strafes as it's going past and then heads away. U is coming in. It still has rockets and strafing to do, so you can try and finish the job, inflict even more damage to maybe get even more victory points. T might get lucky and blow the destroyer out of the water, who knows, but we'll see what happens. Again, back to the barrage. S started off here and entered 1 barrage zone here and then left it. So they only get 1 barrage attack from either L0 or H0. Doesn't really matter which one it is because there's no difference in terms of firing. This time there is no modifier on the flak strength, so that's good. No supporting fire. That's it. It's just a straight roll on the barrage. So let's see what happens to S. Oh, that's a 10. That's not nice. So that is 1 potential hit. Again, no modifier on the roll. And that's a loss. So just for good measure, they've just taken yet another hit. Cohesion doesn't matter at this point. They're broken anyway. So that's another 2 victory points for the Germans there. For T, they started off here. So they are entering 2 flak zones. This one and this one. They are actually entering a 3rd one by going up here because they now are in this zone. So that is 3. Again, doesn't really matter who fires at them, they're all zeros. But they've got now a +2 because there's 3 total units there. Or for the supporting fire, so they got +2 on the roll for the barrage. And that's a 5. That is not going to do anything. So they had a narrow escape on that one. You will have moved from here. So that's 1, enters this zone and this zone. That's 2 zones it's entered there, 3 zones it's entered there. Now it starts off here though, so one of those is a +2. So it's 3 zones, there's +2 supporting fire, +2 for the strength. So it's a +4 to the barrage roll there. And that's finally a really bad one. So they took a hammering. They have 14 or more. That is roll 1d6 and see how many hits. 3 hits, so it's not horrible. But it's definitely a cohesion roll at the end of that. 3 hits, straight d6 rolls. 2, a 4, and a 3. They've only actually got 1 straggler there, but that does turn into a loss. So the straggler becomes a loss there. And then a cohesion roll. So now we've got 2 losses. But that is still okay because it's -2 modifier for the loss, +1 for the veterans, -1. That doesn't matter though because we rolled a 9. So they're fine. They've definitely got a -2 on their thing there though. And the others didn't have any penalties. So now we get into the bombing part. So the plan was we were going to just let loose with our remaining strafes and the rockets. So it's going to be a combined attack. And we were going to just drop them on the destroyer in both cases for Squadron T and for Squadron U. T didn't have any bombing modifiers, so they're a bit more likely to do something useful here. We have a -2 defense modifier for the ship. We've got the +3 for the rockets, which is going to be +1. And they're a veteran, so it's +1. They're not disrupted or anything. So that is going to be a +2 on their bombing roll. And they're going to add the strafing to the firepower of the rockets and lose an ammo. So 8. That is 10. 50%. Of 11, which is 5.5, which is rounded up to 6. That's not bad at all. We have definitely done heavy damage on the destroyer. 6 damage, that's double the damage. Nice one, T. And they have used up all their ammo. Excellent. That's some kind of mission accomplished anyway. And then U is going to do the same thing, but they've got a -2 modifier, so that's going to be less likely. But that is going to be a -2 +3, so it's +1. They were attacked by a flak, so they've got the -2 on that, so that's a -1 total. And they are veteran, so that is a net of 0. And they're not disrupted or anything, so no modifiers here on the bombing roll. And they got a 7, that's 10%. 10% of 11 is 1.1. So they managed to do another hit, which I don't think actually is going to make a difference to the end results. Because they need to get equal to or exceeding double the damage. So they were equal to double the damage. Now they're exceeding, but that's the same. It's crippling damage. Flak suppressed. No taking off. Ship dead in the water, double the unit's VP value. So, yeah, no further effect there. But then that means that the heavy flak is gone, the light flak is gone, and then this is still firing, but these guys are going to fly away now. They're fine. They can just get out of the picture there. So the next turn, patrol boat's going to keep its barrage up here. These ones don't really matter. He's going to fly off. And in fact, actually, because he is going to go up here, he's not actually entering anyone's barrage zone here. If he was going straight up, then yes, he'd be entering the patrol boat's barrage zone. But he's going that way, and we've just killed the destroyer, essentially. So he can get out of there scot-free. And then we're done. They can fly off. That's all that's going to happen. They don't have heavy flak to fire to try and harass the bombers as they leave. Also, yeah, sorry, they got depleted there. So that should be it, I think. hopefully I remember to do all the rolls. So at the end of the day, we didn't do enough damage on the light flak B. Obviously these have dropped as well, so they've lost their loads here. They could have had the option as well of doing one strafe and then turning around, coming back and doing another strafe or something, but I figured it was just going to be a straight run through here. So they have got away, but they did 3 points of damage to light flak B. So that's equal to or exceeding half the damage value of the target. That's minor damage, half the unit's VP value. So that's 2 victory points for damaging the flak here. And then this one, remember the victory points were doubled on this. They did hits equal to or exceeding double the damage value, which they did, but not triple the value. So that's double the unit's VP. So that's 5 doubled to 10, and that is doubled because of the scenario special rules, so that's 20. So they did a total of 22 victory points there. And the flak took out 5 bombers. So that means that is 10 VP, and that was it, I think. So 10 VP. I mean, we didn't do the full scenario with the interceptors and everything, so it doesn't really matter what the points were really, but subtract the German VP from the British VP to see who wins. So the Brits got 22 and the Germans got 10. So that would be 12, and that is plus 6 or more is British victory there, so for what that's worth. That's how Barrage works, and the rockets and the strafing. I did a combined attack with the rockets and the strafing. I did separate attacks with the strafing on their own. I think I did that all okay, but I will have a look at what I did in the edit and make any corrections if I did make any mistakes. That's how Barrage and ATGR rockets and strafing work anyway in practice. It becomes a bit more to keep track of when you kind of go like which unit is firing which barrage, and I didn't even mix things up here, so if I'd been throwing direct fire as well, that would have made things a bit more interesting and complicated as well at the same time. But I'll leave that for you to figure out as an exercise for the viewer. That gets interesting because you have the direct fire taking place in the combat phase, and the barrage takes place at the end of the movement. So if you have different flak units firing barrages and direct fires at the squadron, then they could get barrage hits and direct fire hits one after another, which wouldn't be a good time for them. But again, I can leave you to figure that one out, I think. So that's it. I don't think there's much else for me to try and cover really in terms of rules. All the other bombing attacks are kind of variations of the same thing. They generally work in similar ways, except you have to dive from a certain height or come in from a certain direction or altitude or whatever. So they're not too hard to figure out. I'm going to leave that there for now. If I can think of any other videos to make, then I will. If anyone has any requests, then I will consider them. But I think I've covered most things now. So hopefully this has been some use and has made some kind of sense. And I'll leave it at that. So as usual, if you like the video and subscribe to the channel and follow me on the Twitter, that would be great, and you can then find out about any updates or any plans for more videos. Yeah, if you have any comments or questions, just leave them in the video comments below, and that is that. So thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Ta-da!